first month of the season is behind us, and it is time to launch your NRL SuperCoach team. Round 5, a lot of us are probably boosting to get in all of these cheapies and all of these high upside guys, like our Tom Jenkins, like our Pappenhausens, and even our Jaden Campbells as well. But if your team structure suits getting somebody else or you're down a centre wing and really need somebody to strengthen up that position, it's also a really good time to consider some pods who can really push your team to that next level. Now, as I mentioned last week, a pod's only good if they end up being better than the alternatives that everybody has. So I'm only going to be recommending a few players this week that I reckon are a genuine shot at being that better guys. And at the very end, I'll go through some guys to put in your black book or just watch for the near future, or somebody that might be okay but has a really difficult draw and I don't necessarily recommend. Okay, so first of all, let's have a review of last week's pods. Now, to begin with, we had Kale Iro. 60 at halftime, was tracking really, really well, but then had a hamstring injury. Paul Alamotti had a bit of a low one, but it's hard to do much when you get flogged 28-0 by halftime by Souths. I've never seen the Panthers look like that with this modern team setup that they've got. It was very interesting, actually. Toby Couchman had a few less minutes, possibly with HIA dramas, but Emre Gula out now for a few weeks can probably help that. And who else? Jaden Campbell had a solid one, not a huge one, and now a lot of people are looking to move Metcalf onto him on that bye. So nothing crazy happening, a few unlucky injuries. That's just how pods work sometimes, and they can sometimes just be the one that just hurts you because they might get injured, like Iro. But if you do own somebody who not many have in their team, like a Seyfarth last week, finally went over for some attacking stats, you do end up benefiting quite a lot. So Seyfarth, about 20% owned in the top 5%, or if we take that down to just overall teams, it's about 8%. So technically that would be classified as a pod, and still, even in those higher ranked teams, it's about 1 in 5. So most people still don't have him. Those are the guys that you want to bring in to have in your team that work out and score well when nobody else has them. But you have to be confident that they're going to do that. Otherwise, you're going to be the 1 in 5 with a dud score, while everybody else is trundling along with the high safety, high ownership guys. Now, I wouldn't recommend Seyfarth at this point. He's already averaging 50, and I mean, he's a tackle bot, really. I can't see him being a long-term 600K player. I think you have to have him or start with him in order to get him now at this price. So some guys that I would actually recommend, or at least consider for your team this week. Let's start with somebody who does have a bit more upside to that and could be a keeper or maintain a higher price at least. Bradman Best is the first one I want to look at, and not just because of his -16 break even. That very, very much helps things along, but he scored back-to-back basically 100s. I'll count the 99 from the week before. He's getting a lot of ball. He's a bit of a ball hog. All the Marju owners in round 3, very frustrated with him. The ball stops with him, essentially. He's doing well. And with Dylan Lucas out, I don't see that changing. I think that probably ends up happening even more. And he's going to be that focal point on that left side in attack. He has a pretty solid-looking draw from memory. They play the Dogs this week, which bit of a could go either way matchup. Then they've got Tigers. Sharks is a little hard, but then especially that sort of month or so before Origin, it looks really nice with Warriors, Titans, and Eels, especially somewhere that Bradman Best could go quite large. I think that at 622 with a -16 break even, you can very easily get up past 700, probably stay as a very strong scorer in your team. But if he does end up plateauing or coming coming down again when Lucas returns, well, you've made a good amount of money, and maybe you can then pivot to somebody like a Farnworth after a couple of difficult games have passed. Okay, so the next person, well, there's two Hopewades. The second person that I was thinking about this week, as opposed to like your Pappenhausens and your Reese Walshes, who are a lot more looked at in higher ownership, is Lehigh Hopewade. Now, he's another person to benefit from a medium-term injury. Turbo's out, I think, with an MCL injury, maybe about a month. And when you're fullback, you just get a lot more scoring opportunities, more involvement. I don't think his scoring improved dramatically in the 4 or 5 games last year that I looked up where he played fullback, but that they will naturally increase if the Seagulls are on this week. Maybe not so much, and maybe that's why there's not a lot of change for him. Only about 2% of the top 5 are going him, compared to, actually, let's just remove that and go fullback only just to see who everybody is going. Yeah, and so everybody's looking at Jaden Campbell for probably 5/8 or fullback. Pappenhausen, Ponga's not a pod, Walsh, Gutho's still a little bit, and Lehigh's kind of down there in that sort of Teddy Latrell range. I think that if it wasn't for that Storm game and the Sharks game, he would be really, really heavily looked at this week. But yeah, it just makes it that extra bit awkward. And yeah, well, actually, with that Panthers game as well, that might make it even harder. So maybe he's one that I probably read into a little much based on role. If the Seagulls can upset a few guys, like they flogged the Raiders unexpectedly hard the other week. If they could play well like that, maybe he can grind through. But he's more a stepping stone to a higher gun player like Tedesco, or like at Turbo or Teddy in a month's time, if that fullback role goes well for him. But yeah, looking at that draw, I didn't realise that there's a Panthers and a Sharks game again. Maybe that's a little bit too tough for him. Yeah. Okay, James Tedesco himself, though. Huge break even, but he's James Tedesco. He can score 124. And with the Roosters now getting all their forward pack back, they've got Connor Watson back. They've got everybody except Radley, I think, this week. And their centres and their backline has had a month to stabilise. So Rob Toya and Nwanga Nitawaze are doing pretty solidly, especially Parky Mark. I think he's very close to having a breakout game where he runs and scores a bunch of tries and scores well into the hundreds. And James Tedesco is going to be running off the back of that if the Roosters do end up putting some attack together. They're down the bottom of the ladder at the moment, other than their shot win over the Panthers. It was a bit rough. But yeah, there's a few of these teams do have a bit of a rough-looking draw coming up, which makes those pods a little bit harder to find this week, in all honesty. I've got a list of players that I'll go through at the end that do have back-to-back top 4 potential opposition, and I can't necessarily recommend all of them. I suppose Hopewade probably could go over into that bracket himself. But yeah, Tedesco is probably a little bit more immune to something like that compared to Hopewade. About 60k cheaper than he started the year with, 5-6 points difference. And we know what Teddy can do. If he isn't going to play Origin this year, he's going to be like the biggest must-have of all time. So keep an eye on him. I don't mind him as an option, given that it is incredibly rare to have Tedesco, even at an expensive Tedesco and his other options, below 5%, essentially. That is almost unheard of, essentially. Even between all general coaches, he's still below 5%. So I wouldn't say no to bringing in James Tedesco, even with this little bit of a tough situation, because we know his quality. The last one I want to look at is Angus Crichton, also from the Roosters. As a forward, might not be as affected by those tough games, but we do probably want to see him score tries to go really, really big. And That's why he's dropped price a little bit. He's dropped about 50K, sort of about that 5 points mark. But his base has been really good. His base, his tackles, his power, his offloading has all still been there. All that needs to come from now on is some good ball. And who knows? After uh, after a couple of games, if he gets some attacking stats, he's going to be one of the best edge scorers. He's already averaging, what is it, still averaging around that 70-ish mark, a bit below 65 or so. But he's still averaging much, much better than some of the guys who are losing cash like Hopgood. And I'm more confident that the Roosters can turn it around than the Eels turning it around, to be honest. I think they'll improve more when they get Sam Walker back and some more players in that half role. But Angus is a quality player. We've known him to be tip top of the pile for a very long time, and that return to form last year isn't just going to suddenly slide away in 2025. Now, again, I'm going to finish up with a few players that don't necessarily recommend buying this week, just through strategy or the schedule again. Dylan Egan is one of those. Had a really, really solid looking first game, about 50 minutes, played sort of the almost Vitala Mariner role, played some middle, and then came on to Luciano Leilua's edge for 20 minutes or so. The idea was that with Hamish Stewart looking like he fractured his cheekbone and Emre Guler suspended for 3 weeks, just opens it up for him. 198.8K pathway to making a lot of money quite quickly, and then move him on. With Hamish Stewart named this week, probably not as urgent, and you can wait a week and watch him. Yeah, in a game like Fantasy, where price changes happen straight away, possibly a buy, but you can wait one more week for Dylan Egan in Supercoach. Now, I'm not recommending you buying him this week, but Tom Dearden dropping 100K and then dropping basically 100 on us, it definitely propels him back into relevancy. So not the Panthers this week, probably. That's the thing I'd have against it. But you look past years, 58 average, 61 average. If the Cowboys are a little worse this year, yeah, I could see a drop. And against the Panthers, potentially he could stink it up again and drop some more. But when Tom Dearden is getting this cheap, when we know that he is a relatively solid scoring 5'8", not necessarily elite, but he's somebody that can do a job for you for a while. At a cheap discount price, you're looking to take that. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a giant money maker, but he has some big games, and I think that at that low price, if you can catch them and ride that wave up, you're going to be laughing. Just maybe not against Panthers this week. Chuck a star on him and wait for next week when he plays the Bunnies, then into the Titans and into Warriors. That's the time to probably jump on Tom Dearden. Now, Herbie is Herbie. He is an enormously brilliant Supercoach player. We saw that amazing 170 last year from centre wing, not from a spine position. That was very, very difficult to do as somebody not involved as much in that spine. Now, let's have a look at the way he scored this year, because he's dropped a tiny bit of cash, but his scores have been pretty solid. And the thing that stands out is only one try and not really any line breaks or assists. What he's doing is offloading and tackle busting and running his way to 50s and 60s in base and power. That's what we know Farnworth can do, and he's only increased it this year compared to last year. He's running he's got about 5 extra points in base over this first month than he averaged last year. If he starts adding some attack to that, like against the Titans, like against the Raiders or the Roosters in a few weeks, he's going to be somebody you absolutely want in your team. Reason why I can't recommend him straight away right now is he's pretty much full price. And like so many others, he's got two top four teams staring at him within the next 3 weeks. I'm really not sure who planned the NRL draw to have so many Broncos, Panthers, or Melbourne back to back to back games for like 3 or 4 of these teams. But it's pretty rough for a lot of these potential Supercoach options. And probably just have to wait and watch on Herbie for now. Fantastic, but I would probably look to upgrade to get some other players like him. I prefer a Best. You could probably turn into a Herbie in a month if Best doesn't end up staying in that tip-top tier of wing fullback gun. The last one, as I previously mentioned, Mark Nwangani-Dawaze. He's made some good coin to begin the season, and he's involved in nearly everything. He's looked really dangerous. He's been very close to going big. A couple of tries, some assists, a lot of line breaks. He's very involved in a big part of their attack if they can manage to fully let him loose one game and get it working. He's probably going to score a ton or two. I think at a 525k, it's now really quite an awkward price, and running into Broncos Panthers makes it all the more difficult. But it's not a bad option. If you have him in your team, you're loving it. If you don't have him in your team, probably not hiding behind the couch. But I just want to point him out as somebody who I think can probably have a couple of big games in the near future. Just based on how he looks in real life and how he's used in that Roosters attack. Anyway, that'll probably do for pods this week. There's not a lot really going around. If we do look back at who people are bringing in this week among the top players, it's really just these high ownership guys like Pappenhausen, Campbell, and Jenkins, especially Jenkins, locking up one of those 2 or 3 if you're boosting trades, really limits how many pods you can bring in. But I don't mind bringing in like some of these slightly lower owned players. Walsh, a little bit potty himself, but still pretty highly owned. But yeah, even can't. But yeah, that's 2-week thing. Wait for Kaipi's pull to come back just to make sure you don't get trapped by that with no price rises, and then you start to see all these pods pop up that a few people are interested, but there's probably not as many green ticks in their yes column as there would be most weeks. But yeah, if you do jump on them this week, in the week where it doesn't look really enticing and it works out, they'll be really, really, really helpful for your team. Could also work out not so good if they flop and you've just got somebody expensive for no reason, like you buy Teddy for 850k and he scores the same as a Pappenhausen. You're probably not winning out on that trade. But especially long term, I do love Teddy and some of these guys in your team. Maybe not the week for pods, but if you are looking for some spice in your team, have a look at some of these players. My shout for the week is probably Bradman Best, and yeah, look for him to have a big game against the Bulldogs. All right, thank you everyone for tuning in. I will catch you next week, hopefully with some more suitable pods as we look to start trading out some of these guys, like maybe your Sandon Smiths, maybe like your Purdues and stuff as they top out. And then there'll be some real opportunity to dig in and do some deep dives on these low ownership players. Until next week, I'll see you next time.